Craig Breedlove wants to build and drive the world's fastest car and break the world land speed record. Others are trying it. What makes him think he can do it?
I would say experience, because he was sharp when he came to work for me. He's worked with cars since probably 13, 14 years old.
My parents bought me a 34 Ford for my 13th birthday, and I just tear it down and work on it.
Heck, he knew more than I ever knew, and he has tried everything.
An exploded clutch prevented Craig from setting an all-time record in a belly tank after going 234 miles an hour one way of the required two-way run. But the trip to Bonneville gave him the opportunity to see Mickey Thompson make one of his assaults on the world land speed record in his remarkable four-engine car, the Challenger.
I saw the problems Mickey had, run after run after run, and not being able to get it, I decided I want to go out and I want to break the world land speed record, and rather than try to drive through the wheels, that I'd use jet propulsion.
The jet idea was strictly Craig's. We were thinking of some 2 or 3 engine car.
Around 400 miles an hour is as good as you could go on that Bonneville course with a wheel-driven car.
Craig contacted Walt Sheehan, an authority on turbine engines and ducting. Rod Chappell was the man to handle the finalized design work and the testing.
First thing we did was build a full-scale wood mock-up, and when we got this completed, we built a wind tunnel model with 4 nose configurations, 2 different fairing configurations, and scale wheels. All this time we were progressing further and further on the project. I persuaded my dad to let me extend the garage at his house so that I could have a place to work on the car.
Exhausting his savings, Craig went back to work as a mechanic. He would search for a sponsor on his days off, armed with a brochure and the wind tunnel model.
We made, gosh, I don't know how many hand-done brochures.
Many approaches were made to many different types of companies, but all were unsuccessful.
We had specialists working on this thing in just about every field.
The project is a very fascinating type project.
We were working on something that nobody'd ever done.
The biggest problem was finding the time to work on it.
It was so radical that it looked like it just ought to work.
For instance, the method of steering the car.
There is a right and a left brake pedal in the cockpit. By pushing on the right pedal, it will actuate the right brake and induce a retarding moment on that side of the vehicle, causing it to veer in that direction. At high speed, the vehicle will be controlled with a canard rudder on the bottom of the nose. This rudder will become effective about 165 miles an hour.
This is more than a backyard hot rod idea. The project is not only fundamentally sound, but it's mature.
We were fresh out of money and we had to have some strong sponsors. I contacted Shell Oil, and when its top management was sold, we got the money to finish the car, engineers to assist us, and a manager to organize the project. Then I saw Goodyear, and they agreed to develop 600-mile-an-hour tires and to design and build the brakes and machine the wheels.
At least part of the dream was now a reality. The car was going to be finished.
At the time Goodyear got into the land speed record project, the Spirit of America had been designed around a 48-inch diameter tire. With this defined, we proceeded to determine tire width, bead diameter, and the pressure necessary to carry the load and withstand the extreme forces of 600 miles an hour. We adopted the extremely low profile design.
We took the car to Quinn Epperly's shop in Gardena to have the aluminum skin formed and fitted to the chassis.
Everything is built by hand. You've got to draw it up, scribe it, and cut it out, and then file it and smoothen it, and try and fit it. It takes you hours and days and weeks. The whole machine is built that way. It had to be built that way. We accelerated our program to have the car ready for Bonneville.
Because of the money and the backing involved, where we would have to go past the hat to get a casting made before, we merely send out and have it done now.
But we were trying to get them done in a hurry, and the costs were accelerated about 10 times over what we had figured.
The forged aluminum wheel was selected mainly because of the greater uniformity and the lack of porosity of a forging, and since we were using tubeless tires, we did not lose air through the wheel itself, which is inherent in a casting. The tires were designed for 600 miles per hour and proven by testing under full load at 650.
We were working so that we could get the car finished and make Bonneville in 1962.
The closer we got to the deadline, the more apparent it became that we were running out of time, and we would have to work straight through.
We were continuously set back by various parts that would be the wrong parts, things that were machined and came out wrong. We were working at this time 7 days a week, 18, sometimes 24 hours a day.
We just went around the clock. That's all there was to it. It wasn't easy, but I have done harder things. And I've done harder things for a lot less reason, too.
A public unveiling of the car had been postponed 3 times, but now, except for the wheel fairings, the car was ready.
It's a car, believe it or not. In Los Angeles, Craig Breedlove unveils the Spirit of America, his jet-powered 3-wheel streamliner designed to go 500 miles an hour or more. Breedlove will attempt to better the late John Cobb's 15-year-old mark of 394 miles an hour and bring home to America the world land speed record, in British hands since 1929. Present meets past as the 25-year-old speedster confers with General Jimmy Doolittle, a speed ace of another day. Driver, car, and crew are headed for the famed Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah for testing, and then a crack at the world's record. All America is with you, Craig. Good luck.
Salt Lake City, Utah is located on the dried-up bed of Lake Bonneville. Tens of thousands of years ago, this landlocked body of water was 1,000 feet deep and the size of Lake Michigan. Today, its main remnants are the Great Salt Lake and a great desert of deposited salts 3,000 square miles in area, 1/3 larger than the state of Delaware. 120 miles to the west, near the Utah-Nevada border, the deposits formed a surface crystalline salt body 200 square miles in area, the Bonneville Salt Flats. The standing water of winter rains dissolves and levels the surface, so that in summer the salt lies flat and hard and dry, the best surface for automobile racing ever discovered. No wildlife exists, and the principal signs of man's industry are a railroad, a highway, and the evaporation ponds that collect potash and other salts for commercial use. Summer temperatures range from 50 degrees at night to over 100 degrees by day, and the rising heated air causes sudden thunderstorms of great violence. Unique, dangerous, a strangely brutal and very beautiful land.
And what it is nothing. It's just flat, big, flat salt. It's beautiful, but there sure is a lot of it. how do you learn to drive something like this? It's not an airplane, and it's not really a car. This is an experimental craft.
I had never steered a car using the brakes before, and I was quite worried about making this transition into the fin.
There wasn't much left to chance. The parachute that would slow the car down after the run had an identical twin standing by just in case, and a fire extinguisher system was in the engine compartment. Shell had shipped in from its Wood River, Illinois refinery a stock of new, very special high-energy jet fuel. Anything that could distract the driver for even an instant had to be anticipated. Flying salt particles, dust, and fumes in the cockpit necessitate a special breathing system, and the stiff, rough ride would batter the driver unmercifully without a body-conforming seat and a firm harness.
There are only so many safety precautions that can be taken. Of course, the ultimate precaution is not to get in the car in the first place. That I made on the salt was at a very high power setting. I accelerated quite rapidly, and I was steering with the rear brakes until I was right up to 300 miles an hour, and I wasn't able to get the fin to take over as control. At that point, actually, the car was what I would consider completely out of control. I had to immediately shut the power off and come to a stop. He stopped the car, and we all rushed up there, and he got out of the car and fairly calmly said, in a loud, clear voice, "It isn't going to work." And then after that, why it became more and more evident to us that he was right. This first run frightened me quite a bit because I had actually no control over the car. By about the fifth run, it looked pretty hopeless, but we wanted to stay there and see if we couldn't get it to work, so we started making adjustments. We adjusted the thrust angle first. Then we started looking to the front wheel adjustment. There was a great amount of flexibility in the front suspension installation. It would allow the wheel to camber in one direction or the other. We continually had problems and more problems. It was a very heartbreaking thing to have the car with so much effort in it and so much work on everybody's part and continually go off the course and be uncontrollable. People had placed their faith in me, and now we were faced with a complete failure. We were going to have to take the car back and make changes in it to make it work.
While on the salt, minute changes had been made in the alignment of the front wheel in an effort to make the car go straight. Some maneuverability in the wheel, no more than 2 degrees worth, was found to be desirable. Coupling it with the steerable nose fin at a changeable ratio determined by tests provides a single steering system requiring no changeover by the driver. Some drivers have poured tons of lead into the nose of their cars to move the center of gravity forward and achieve positive stability like an arrow in flight. Such a load on Spirit's front wheel would only create other problems. A better solution was to move the aerodynamic center back by increasing area to the rear of the car. A tail fin was the answer. "10 months and 19 days after its first trials, Spirit was ready for Bonneville again. On the Salt the last Sunday of July 1963, anxious to try out Spirit's new steering and to start the car on its preliminary runs, gradually building up to record speed.
By the time I had made 2 runs, I knew that the car was going to be successful. I had control over the vehicle. I could steer it. We started to build the speed up in increments. By Thursday afternoon, I had gone 349 miles an hour.
The next 2 days were spent inspecting Spirit for damage and wear and in ironing out the few bugs that appeared. Pressures on the chute door caused it to blow off and open the chute prematurely. Salt corrosion in one of the breathing system's valves necessitated a replacement.
When you run on salt, you've really got your hands full. It powders up in a very fine dust off the tires, and this dust floats through the entire car. It gets into all the wheel bearings, all the steering mechanisms. Every place you think is sealed off and completely protected against the salt. It corrodes, it rusts.
Such are the problems of running a car at Bonneville. All measuring and timing on the course is done by USAC, United States Auto Club. It is the only American organization universally recognized as a timer for international records. The course is carefully measured in kilometers and miles to meet rigid international standards in setting up the timing equipment. The effect of ground temperature on the stretch of the steel measuring tape is even taken into account, and the officials permit themselves a tolerance of less than an inch per mile over the entire 10-mile course. The all-important measured record mile is located midway along the track. A light beam is focused on an electric eye at the various measured intervals along the course. The instant any beam is interrupted by the car, a signal is transmitted to the timing shack and recorded. What does it feel like to go 250 miles an hour?
It's a challenge, a real thrill to drive fast.
Speed is a thing that just draws me in. It's excitement.
Driving a fast car is a little bit scary, it seems to me.
It's something you really can't explain.
Is this something like why does a guy climb a mountain?
It's like good music. It sends a chill up your spine.
It's a matter of achievement.
Everybody tries to go faster, go higher.
Some guys like automobiles, others like to go on hikes.
I just like to go fast.
It's an age-old thing. It's excitement. Psychologists like to tie it in with sex.
The last run Sunday afternoon produced a speed of 365 miles an hour. The wind came up and it really turned into a storm. I was worried that the course might get flooded out for the next morning. Newspaper and the television stations in Salt Lake City had announced that I would make an attempt for the world record on Monday morning. This really wasn't my intention. We were still in a test program and we hadn't built up to full power yet, but I think everyone was caught up in the spirit of the project. There was just a complete air of confidence. On Monday morning, I was quite surprised by the number of people that were actually out there. They were asking me if I thought I'd break the record and if I was nervous, which of course I was. We had run 87% throttle the day before, and I had decided to run 90% this morning. I didn't know how fast the car would go at this setting. I knew that the run would be pretty fast. I was just hoping that it would be over the 394 mark set by John Cobb.
Word was relayed from the timing shack that Craig had turned 388.47 miles an hour in the measured mile.
But in the kilometer, which is at the far end of the mile, I had gone a speed of 394.
For an official record, 2 runs in opposite directions must be completed within 1 hour. This offsets any track irregularities and the effects of winds. The speed computed from the average time of the 2 runs determines the record. Mickey Thompson had exceeded Cobb's record speed and gone 406 miles an hour in one direction, but his car was unable to make the return run. Craig now hoped that at 95% RPM, his return run would be fast enough to break the record. He decided to go for it. results of the return run and the computed average of the 2 runs would be relayed from the timing shack in a few moments. With 388.47 clocked for the first run, Craig would have to have done at least 408 to better Cobb's average by the required 1%.
I knew I had gone over 400 miles an hour. In fact, I was asked, how fast do you think you went? And I said 425.
428.37, and the land speed record returns to America. The official average speed of the 2 runs was 407.45 miles per hour for the measured mile. At the same time, new records were created for the 5-mile run and for the 1, 5, and 10-kilometer course. Craig Breedlove had built his dream car and guided it across the face of the earth faster than any man had driven before. Whatever follows, whatever the future holds, this was his moment.